Washington, this is VOA News. Beijing warns against foreign interference in Hong Kong protests. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says Iran bigger threat than Islamic State. I'm Ray Kouguell reporting from Washington. Tens of thousands of pro-democracy demonstrators in Hong Kong are defying government demands to leave the streets of the Chinese territory, even as Beijing warns against foreign interference. Police fired volleys of tear gas at the protesters in the financial district of the city before pulling back at midday Monday because, they said, the protest appeared to be weakening. But the crowds grew again in the evening as people got off work. In Washington, the White House says it is closely watching the situation in Hong Kong, urging authorities there to show restraint and calling for the protesters to remain peaceful. Kurdish militias in northern Syria continued clashing with Islamic State militants Monday as coalition forces capped off their first week of airstrikes with fresh attacks on militant positions in Syria and Iraq. U.S. Central Command says Jordan and the United Arab Emirates participated in the most recent coalition strikes in Syria. The joint forces hit ISIS vehicles, weapons, and compounds in several parts of the country. The United Nations opened the headquarters of its new mission to combat Ebola Monday, assembling a team in Ghana's capital, Accra, to coordinate the international response. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says the mission will help to unify the response to the Ebola outbreak, coordinating international aid, and providing support to the affected countries. The World Health Organization says the Ebola death toll in West Africa has now surpassed 3,000. This is VOA News. The United States is giving an additional $83 million in emergency aid for refugees fleeing the fighting in South Sudan. The U.S. State Department says the conflict there threatens to create a famine and that more than 2 million people are already facing crisis levels of food insecurity. Afghanistan has a new president. Ashraf Ghani took the oath of office Monday in the country's first democratic transfer of power. Ayaz Gul reports from Islamabad.
The inauguration ceremony at Kabul's presidential palace took place before a large number of foreign dignitaries, including neighboring Pakistan's President Mamnoon Hussain and senior U.S. presidential advisor John Podesta. Moments after taking the oath, President Ashraf Ghani swore in election rival Abdullah Abdullah as chief executive of his so-called National Unity Government. In his inaugural speech, President Ghani urged the Taliban and other anti-government insurgents to join peace talks to put an end to bloodshed in the country. President Ghani said security is a main demand of all Afghans and he will go to any extent to restore peace in the country. Ayaz Gul, Islamabad.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is accusing Iran of trying to bamboozle the world into a deal to end sanctions while still allowing it to build a nuclear bomb. Mr. Netanyahu told the UN General Assembly Monday that Iran is on a mission to spread an Islamic revolution around the world. He said a nuclear-armed Iran would be more dangerous than the Islamic State group. He grimly warned that Islamic militants believe in a master faith, the way Nazis touted a master race in the 1930s. The Prime Minister said all Muslim militants, including Islamic State, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, and Boko Haram, shared the same fanatical idealism and that Iran could be their power base. News reports say the intruder who climbed a fence at the White House ran across the lawn and into the building earlier this month, getting farther inside than the U.S. Secret Service has publicly acknowledged. The New York Times, the Washington Post, and network TV news programs all cite unidentified sources who say the intruder rushed past a guard at the front door and ran down a hallway past a staircase leading to the Obama family living quarters before he was subdued. The Secret Service has said the man, 42-year-old Omar Gonzalez, was arrested just inside the main entrance to the White House. The service also initially said he was unarmed, but it was later revealed that he was carrying a knife. Fighting in eastern Ukraine killed at least 12 soldiers and civilians in another blow to an already shaky ceasefire. Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatists exchanged shells and gunfire over the past 2 days near the rebel-held city of Donetsk. A Ukrainian spokesman says a rebel shell hit an armored vehicle near the Donetsk airport, 3 civilians killed. I'm Ray Kouguell in Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.